Catchment Sensitive Farming. It's about working with farmers, helping identify the issues, the solutions, and the opportunities. So we've been doing this since 2006. So basically, Catchment Sensitive Farming, thanks for putting this slide over. Catchment Sensitive Farming has been working since 2006, I say. Ripple came in 2009. The Alton Crossings has been a peculiar one in that it was part of a pilot to see if the private sector could deliver it any more effectively than the public sector. It was a trial from 2012 to 2013. And then the Crossings itself has come back into the project in 2015. So it's a bit of a sort of split partnership in that. But key thing is we're working in high priority areas, and we work with a range of people like the HGB campaign for the farmed environment, tried and tested, which is part of the professional nutrient management group, and water companies and many more. So if we could just go on to the next slide, Rebecca. So I think you've seen this picture already on Simon's presentation this morning. The blue area is the target area, and the red is the blue area is a high priority area, the red area is a medium priority area, which in this case, the red area, part of that is the alt area, and the crossings is the blue. So my key working area is obviously the blue area, but I do have a jurisdiction to work in the medium priority area as well. Okay, so we can just go on to the next slide. So the work that Catchment Sensitive Farming does, since 2015, we've been drawn into the countryside stewardship and the grant scheme. So we help farms out with that delivery. This year's been very different. It's been a challenge because we've actually not been able to go out to the farms and see on the ground. So we've been using aerial photography, we've been relying upon a lot of evidence from the farmers, which has actually been taking us longer as opposed to going out visiting farms and that. So this is just an illustration. This slide is just an illustration of some of the countryside stewardship environmental options that you could take up. So I've just highlighted it in two of the grassland options. So soil and water, item 2, intensive grassland buffer strips between 4 and 6 meters. That pays £170 a hectare. And the arable side, which is obviously on the Alton Crossing side, which is more important to farmers in the area, looking at nectar flower mixes, autumn swarm bumblebird mixes is termed as, and then looking at infield grass strips, SW3 or SW4, which is 12 to 24 meters. So those are good opportunities, but there's a whole range of items altogether that you could be looking at, and I'll put the website at the bottom of that just for reference. So if we can go on to the next slide. And this is us getting out, delivering our work. So looking where there's issues, on an arable farm, is that compaction, is the soil structure compromised? Is there evidence that there's erosion and it's banked up? In this case, there's a couple of photographs there where soil has come down the fields and it's hit up against the fence, which is actually acts as a barrier. Fortunately, because there's a great big pond, and what we don't want is soil, nutrients, pesticides, fertilizers landing up in that, because then it gets enriched and compromises it. And then the ultimately is protecting those water courses, so fencing that off. And what we call where the ultimate problem is going to land up is in what we call the receptor. So in this case, this is a local farm on the Douglas that has actually taken advantage of the grant scheme and has fenced that off. So if we go on to the next slide, please. And again, looking at some of the mitigation measures, you've got a problem. These may be some of the measures you may go down the line. Reducing compaction, helping eradicate compaction from your tram line. So that's a handy little gadget. The tram line eradicator is actually available through the grant scheme, but it has to be part of a higher tier application, which is very unfortunate. I would have loved to have seen it as part of a mid-tier application because we would have had a lot more got out there. And the last part is, looking at the sediment pond there, that's been specially made so that the water goes through it, but you're creating space and forcing the water to zigzag through the barriers that you can see. So hoping that the clay particles and the heavier sediment elements will drop out, and then in due course, if you see that filling up, get in there with the digger load or whatever is appropriate in your circumstances and clean it out so that it's functional again. In this case, this was actually a high clay area, and it takes a phenomenal amount of time for clay to settle out. But you're doing what you can if you've got a problem of runoff or you're gathering soils from various sources. Okay, if we could just go on to the next slide, please. And again, we've been looking at the field side of things, actually getting out onto farms, identify opportunities to go into countryside stewardship and get funding through that for changing land into a different purpose. Then the other element which Catchment Sensitive Farming has been very effective in delivering is the grants. So in this case, we're looking at a chemical store. You can see this immediately outside. You've been loading up in an area where the concrete's been broken. Can we provide some of the solutions for that? About chemical storage, washdown areas, and sorting out the concreting. Installation of water gates. If you've got livestock about and you've got a stream that you can't fence off, maybe the water gate might help. And that really is a creme de creme of water gates. I think it's a fantastic one. It's a lot safer to put into place. And then looking at the yard works, and I'll put the codes in there on the titles. So yard works is a range of items from RP13 to RP19. Concrete in itself is RP15. So a lot of interest in that. Okay, and if we go on to the next slide, please. Again, more capital works we've done. Most of these photographs are on the Ribble or the Douglas. There may be some from the crossing area as well. So we can roof over a number of items. So like a slurry store, manure store, livestock gathering area. A lot of the grants tend to be geared better towards the livestock sector, but there are grants out there that can function with the arable side as well. So, putting in tracks very effectively, helping reduce the amount of sedimentation, keeping livestock in the right place, helping machinery get about the farm and reduce sedimentation. Putting cross drains in, this is probably the most effective cross drain I've seen. Ironically, actually, it wasn't funded by us, but I like this cross drain. It's very simple. You can lift it out, clean it out, put the cross drain metalwork back in, and off you go. A pipe culvert is another one, the last item on there, RP6, as it's coded as. Again, keeping machinery and livestock out of water, helping reduce that sedimentation and eutrophication that can occur. Okay. And just so you're aware, this year we've done about, on my catchment, we've had interest in over £2 million worth of capital works, going back up until between 2009 when the Ribble came in and being moved over into countryside stewardship. On the Ribble, the Douglas and the Alton Crossings, we had applications for just over £4 million worth of work. This year's been exceptional, quite different in that there's no effective cap on the capital side of things, but that we believe is going to change in the near future. Possibly next year they may be bringing some restrictions in. But for me, that's not a problem because we haven't had any of these really high level ones. So, right. So, we've talked about doing the job. But the other thing is about gathering the evidence to that work. So ultimately, if you've ever seen somebody wandering around with a very sort of rugged-looking backpack, they may actually be electroefficient to identify the river ecology. So they stun what's in the water course, pick them out, count them, look for the diversity and so on. And again, the other one, there's a tub there. Looking at doing what we call quick sampling, seeing how wide a range of diversity is. So the Environment Agency does this work, but also a lot of the Rivers Trusts do this as well. So, in terms of what we've done in catchment sensitive farming, we evidence all our work through our evaluation team, which is based in the Environment Agency. So they continually are monitoring. We have monitoring of 8 catchments in the country. It would be cost prohibitive for us to do all the catchments in the country. So they do a number. They look at a range of different areas. So specialize in pesticides and so on. So that that's providing the evidence to justify why we actually go out there to do the job that we do. Next slide, please. And that's me. I hope I'm just about on time on that. So again, we'll take questions as required. Okay, thank you.